Hi, friend, and welcome back to another episode of Donya's Plants with Doña. I am Doña. On this channel, I'd like to share with you what I know about the houseplants that I have in my home and go through basic care tips like light needs, water, propagation, fertilizer if I know, soil if I know, and things like that. If you find this information helpful, useful, entertaining, or you just enjoy me as a person, then please subscribe to my channel. Leave me a thumbs up. Leave a nice comment below. I love talking to you guys. Oh my god, my dogs are barking. Let's get into today's video. I'm drinking out of Grover's teacup by accident. But I'm here to share with you what I know about the rubber tree. As you can see, I have two different varieties of rubber tree. The first, and rubber tree is also known as Ficus Elastica. So this first one is a burgundy rubber tree, and you can see that her leaves are a beautiful dark green. Underneath, let me see if I can show you this without breaking something. She's got this nice burgundy line underneath her leaves, and it starts off on her stem. She's actually two plants, two separate trees, and I could separate her, but I don't wanna. But yeah, so this is burgundy Ficus Elastica, or burgundy rubber tree. And then I have Miss Ruby D, who is, I believe her variegation is called like Taneki. It's kind of pinkish. You can really see it in this brand new leaf. Got pinkish hue to the variegation. But I mean, seriously, just check that out. It's so pretty. I care for my rubber trees the same exact way. I actually got Ruby D as a cutting. She was probably about that tall, I think. Like maybe this leaf was the first one to grow. And she's been pretty happy ever since. I got Avis. I named this rubber tree Avis after my grandmother. And she was much, much smaller. And I'll talk to you about her leaves and some differences that I've noticed since she's been growing. So let's start off with light. First of all, rubber trees are trees, so they do grow to be very large if they're provided with adequate light. Rubber trees love light. Like most houseplants, they don't like bright, direct light. So if the light is too harsh coming through your window, it will burn the foliage. However, they do like bright light. So if you can have your rubber tree directly in a window, especially like a south-facing window where the sun is it's not rising on that side. And I'm in Southern California, so my north-facing window, not south-facing window. My south-facing window has much softer sunlight than my north-facing window has much softer sunlight than my south-facing window. The south side of my house is just like all sun. So that's where I usually have the windows closed. I do have some plants. Actually, this rubber tree is in a south-facing window. I'm just lying through my teeth. However, she's about 2 to 3 feet away from the window. So she's not directly against the window. She's about 2-3 feet away from the window. And she's very happy there. Ruby D is over here on this side in the plant room, on the plant wall. And she is about the same distance, about 3 feet away from a north-facing window. Both plants are really happy. Rubber trees, I feel like maybe they grow kind of slow. I don't know. I can't really tell when it comes to plant growth because I have a lot of them. So it seems like they all grow pretty quickly. But to summarize, lighting needs, your rubber tree likes bright light. Now, just really quickly, you can tell some differences in light. So all of Ruby's leaves, all of her foliage looks to be about the same size. However, this is kind of cool and kind of creepy. So we're going to look at Avis's leaves, right? And she's got really huge leaves, and then all of a sudden this little tiny one and another little tiny one, and then they start getting a little bit bigger as they grow, as they go up her trunk. And that's because at this point in time, when this leaf sprouted, she was not getting enough sunlight. So something you can use to determine whether or not your plants are getting enough sunlight is their foliage. Compare it to their foliage that was already on the plant when you purchased it, where they were getting all the light they possibly could desire because they were in a greenhouse and they were probably getting it from every angle, every angle imaginable, to transferring it to your home. And it's bound to happen because the conditions are different. But if you notice that the leaves are significantly smaller, that could be a cue. And they've grown to full size. Like once your plant starts growing new leaves and that other leaf hasn't grown anymore, then you know that the foliage, that's the size of the foliage and it could probably use some more light, right? When it comes to water, I water my rubber trees when they're bone dry. Their foliage does get a little curly. Well, it gets a lot curlier when they need some water. I'm certain. Oh, actually, no, I just watered. Yeah, I just watered Avis a day or two ago. She maybe could use some more water, but their foliage does tend to get really curly. I notice it more on Avis than I do on Ruby D. Her foliage doesn't typically curl, her foliage will wilt. So right now her foliage is nice and up and perky and pointing towards the sun. And when she needs more water, it'll begin to wilt and fall. And she looks like a sad, droopy puppy. So keep an eye on your rubber trees. If you're not certain whether the soil is dry, you can get yourself one of these bad boys. And this is just a moisture meter, but it also measures the pH of a plant and it measures the light level. So you'd want to make sure that this part is facing the sun and put it into your plant. And over here, the meter is on moisture. In the middle, it's on light. And then over all the way to this side is on pH. Also want to make sure that it's on the right setting when you're measuring your plant for moisture, because if it's on pH or something, you're not going to get a correct reading. So if you're ever not sure whether your plant is dry or not, grab one of these. It's a moisture meter. I got it from like $10 at Lowe's or Home Depot. All you do is stick it directly into the soil of the plant. And I like to stick it as far down as it can possibly go, and it will give you a reading. Ooh. And it says that Ruby is pretty dry. That side is the dry side. Y'all can see that. So she's dry. So I could give her some water, and maybe I will. I just got to get my water tub. Another way I could tell that she's dry is because she's very light. But if you have plants in ceramic pots, it's difficult to tell whether they're light in weight or not because their pots are heavy. Next, let's discuss propagation. Propagating rubber trees is very, very easy. It might be easier on Ruby because she's smaller to see that where each leaf comes out, there is a node, and you can actually feel it. It's like a little, not perforation, but it's raised a little bit where each leaf comes out. So if I wanted to propagate Ruby D, I could cut her right here between these two leaves and probably remove this leaf and probably remove both of these leaves, or maybe even all three of these leaves, and allow roots to grow out of each node. Just put her in water, maybe some soil with some rooting hormone. Always remember two things when it comes to propagating when you propagate plants that way. If you're propagating plants like rubber trees or umbrella trees that just grow out of a single stalk and that's where their nodes are, just on their stalk, two things will happen. If I were to cut Ruby in half to propagate the top of her plant, the original plant is going to begin pushing out new foliage from different areas because now the plant has the opportunity to use that energy on different areas. So instead of her just being a single stalk, if I propagate her, she might start growing another stalk out of here. Okay? And then when it comes to the piece that I'm propagating, you want to be sure that it has the least amount of foliage possible. It does have to have at least, one leaf or two leaves so that the plant can perform photosynthesis. But the less leaves that it has to support as far as nutrients go, the more the cutting is going to focus on root growth. Okay? I learned that recently. And also an example was my umbrella tree, which is popping out foliage all over the stalk, like on the bottom, in the middle, because I chopped off the top and tried to propagate it. The propagation was not successful. That's another thing you want to remember is if you can, propagate as many pieces as possible. So since I know that on Ruby D and rubber trees, where every leaf comes out is a node, I would try and make I would try and cut it into pieces so that I have a better chance of propagating something. Instead of just taking off a really big chunk, taking off all the leaves and just propagating that one stem, I would maybe chop that stem up into 2 or 3 pieces if possible, and then trying to propagate each piece because that'll increase my chances of success. Remember that, plants are not going to be angry if you fail to propagate them. That's another great thing about propagating from a plant that you already have is that plant's still going to continue to grow. If you just have a cutting that you're propagating, then, if you chop it all up and that's all you have of that plant and none of the propagations are successful, it's going to be a bummer because you just lost your whole plant. So keep that in mind, but don't be afraid to propagate. The worst thing that could happen is the plant could die, but circle of life, just compost it, use it as plant food for the rest of your plants, or it's okay. Plants die all the time. As long as you're not abusing them on purpose, purposeful neglect, that's the bad stuff. Okay, so we talked about light, talked about water, we talked about propagation. When it comes to fertilizer, I don't know the specifics. I would encourage you to fertilize based on the size of the pot, as well as just with like a basic general liquid fertilizer. It's still pretty warm out right now in my area, but within the next month or two, you should be slowing down on fertilizer or maybe even stopping. You want to make sure that you only fertilize plants when they have visible new growth. If a plant does not have any visible new growth, then it should not be fertilized. So as it begins to cool down and the days begin to shorten, plants are going to stop growing. They're kind of going to go into some sort of kind of like a dormancy. They might grow, but they might grow super slow, and they're not going to need that. They're not going to need that extra fertilizer to help push out new foliage. Avis also has some new growth, and actually, maybe I'll propagate one of Avis's stalks. There's another great thing about propagating is that you can help your plant look fuller if you propagate and just stick those pieces that propagate back into the soil of the same pot. Then you have a bushier plant, and it'll also help that original stalk, like I said, be bushier because it'll push energy to different places and it'll start growing outward instead of just straight up. I'm actually doing that with one of my my mini monstera, which is a I forgot what it's called. I'll show you on another video. But that's my goal. She was super, super long, just growing like forever and ever and ever. So I chopped her up and put those propagated pieces in water, and I'm just gonna stick them back into the soil of the same plant, and then she'll just be super big and bushy and just keep growing. When it comes to soil for my rubber trees, they are in just a general potty mix. They're not plants that I'm aware of that need soil that's super, super airy or need soil that's really, really fast draining like a succulent. So just general potting mix is what I use for them. I haven't had any issues with, root rot or any other issues that would be caused from like water retention. So yeah, that's really it for rubber trees. Again, just remember that they are trees, so they can grow to be, 6 to 8 feet tall in your home if they have adequate light. That's all they need is adequate light, and of course, some love and attention. And they will. Oh my foot's going to sleep. I want to kick the camera. They will continue to grow. So we have Ruby D, the variegated rubber tree. Like I said, I think she's called Taneki, I want to say. And we have Miss Avis, named after my grandmother, who passed away in 2010. And she has the deep green leaves. I believe she's called a burgundy variation. Yeah, rubber trees are beautiful. They're very easy to grow. Give them tons of sunlight, water them when they're dry, love on them, fertilize them during the growing months. I'm still just using the same little pellet fertilizer that I've had for like a billion years and never really used. I don't even remember why I bought a jar that big, but I've been sprinkling it in some plants just because I have it. So I probably won't purchase any liquid fertilizer until I'm all done with that. I've definitely been using it for my tomato plants, who are very heavy feeders. And yeah, that's all I have for y'all today. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you learned something. I hope that you go out and get rubber tree. I've been seeing them a lot at like grocery stores. They're usually really small and super cute, but they're really easy to find. They're not, really rare or anything. The variegated kind are really awesome, but I mean, all rubber trees are really beautiful, super easy to care for. Oh, something that I do for my rubber trees, um, just because of how their leaves are and or their foliage is, I do tend to clean them every month or so. And I'll just grab, I don't have any towels over here, but just a microfiber towel. And in a spray bottle, I have half water, not tap water, but half like distilled water, something that's not going to provide those hard water stains. So just if your water is really hard, then don't use it. If your water is softer, then you can totally use tap water or just bottled water is fine. But half water and half just regular lemon juice. I spray that onto the towel and I wipe the leaves off because these leaves are so large, they do get dusty. And cleaning them off just helps them. Oh, what's that? Oh, it's just fuzz. I was like, oh my God, is that a spider mite? Cleaning them off just helps them provide photosynthesis or complete the process of photosynthesis more easily because they don't have an extra layer blocking the sunlight. Remember that in nature, plants get rained on, so things don't typically stick to their leaves as far as dust and stuff like that. But these babies do have very large, very large leaves. I don't use any plant shine, mayonnaise, blah, blah, blah. Um, Honestly, I just don't feel like buying anything extra. I always have lemon juice and I always have water and I always have towels and I always have spray bottles. So I'd rather just use something that's, more natural on the plant itself. Again, if I had the opportunity to put my plants in the shower where I have a water softener filter to just rinse their leaves off every once in a while, I totally would. But I have a lot of plants and that would just be a lot of work because my shower is a square. So yeah, but that's just one little more tidbit about caring for rubber trees. And I do that for most of my plants, like my monstera with really big leaves, my peace lilies. It's easier to do it with plants with bigger leaves because you can just put their leaf in your palm and then just wipe it off and then you're good to go. All right, friends. What is that? I'm just like noticing all these little things. That is all for today for real this time. Thank you for joining me on Doña's Plants with Doña. I'm Doña. Anywho, have a beautiful Wednesday. I will see you all back on Sunday and I will make a video on my mini monstera. I forget the scientific name. It's like Rhea Federma or something like that. I'll write it down because, yeah, I'm going to write it down for myself because I'm not going to remember. Anywho, have a beautiful day. You're all amazing. And go buy a plant today. Just do it. Do it. And then ask me about it. I'm on Instagram. My Instagram link will be in the description. Buy a new plant and then take a picture and send it to me so I can live vicariously through you. Because Grover won't let me have any more plants. See how quiet he is? He knows it's true. Okay. Have a great day. Bye.